Disclaimer: the following episode contains spoilers for Kingsman, The Golden Circle. Don't go crying to your mum if we spoil it for you. You've been warned. Welcome to PodCapers, the official podcast of A Place to Hang Your Cape. And this week, Wednesday.
Isn't it Saturday?
What day is it today?
It is Wednesday.
That's right. Cue the music! Hello there, Capers, and welcome to PodCapers, the official podcast of A Place to Hang Your Cape. This is a show where we talk about various geek and nerdy subjects, and are joined each week by a very special different guest. And now I am joined this week by Jonathan. How do you say your last name?
Hazin.
Jonathan Hazin. How are you doing today, sir?
I'm good. How are you, Scott?
I'm very well, thank you. Now, Jonathan, what do you do?
Well, I started writing for A Place to Hang Your Cape in the beginning of the summer. I'm currently at Vassar College in the U.S., studying film.
Oh, well, very nice. Yeah, so where do you live right now?
Right now I'm in Poughkeepsie, New York, but I'm from New York City.
Oh, the Windy City. Lovely. I like to make that joke. I've never once got a laugh. Don't worry about it. No. And today, so this week, we're talking about Kingsman, The Golden Circle. Now, let's talk a bit about the first Kingsman movie before we get started, before we get into the nitty-gritty. What did you think of the first Kingsman movie?
I thought it was wonderful. Not a perfect movie, but I really enjoyed it when it came out. I thought it came out at the perfect time. It was a great breath of fresh air for spy movies, for action movies, for that type of R-rated action. I don't want to just call it the Deadpool genre, but it sort of became the Deadpool genre. But this started it, and I thought it was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed it.
I completely agree. I mean, I loved it. I thought it was so cool. Matthew Vaughn is fast becoming one of my favourite directors working today, just because he's very action-orientated, but there's a lot of heart and soul, and it's very character-driven, the stuff he does. I was really impressed with X-Men First Class.
Same.
That was a breath of fresh air after too many disappointments. What did they do to Deadpool? I'm sorry. And so, we can't keep talking about Deadpool with this sort of stuff. And
Sure.
I thought it was, as you say, breath of fresh air. Really set Taron Egerton, however you say his name's career. And I think he's a great new talent. I really like him. He can do a lot of stuff. He's a very good actor. He can act, and he can do action stuff. He can do character-driven stuff, like we saw in Eddie the Eagle. He can also sing, apparently, but because of course he's Welsh. They can all sing. This is the law. Yeah. And so it was really, and it was just, for me, the big selling point was Colin Firth kicking ass.
Absolutely.
And not in a funny, like, oh, he's having a bit of fisticuffs with Hugh Grant. No, he is properly massacring people.
Yeah, that movie did a great job, not only with Taron Egerton in building this guy into, if he's not a star yet, a star very, very soon. But Matthew Vaughn did a really great job of taking actors who I wouldn't immediately think of as part of an action movie, but once, except for Samuel L. Jackson, of course, but once they pop up in one, you realize, they do action movies great. Colin Firth was fantastic. Samuel L. Jackson was a lot of fun. The woman that played his sidekick, Sofia Boutella.
That's what I was struggling to think of her name. She's getting off to quite a good start with her career. I mean, less so with The Mummy recently, but we won't hold that against her.
Yeah, but she was still great in Star Trek. I just recently saw Atomic Blonde, another great performance in that. I wish The Mummy had been that great franchise for her, but oh well.
I mean, if it's not going to hurt Tom Cruise's career, I don't think it's really going to hurt hers at this point. I think she'll be fine. Yeah. And, I mean, I just thought it was a really, really cool movie. And it had Michael Caine in it.
Yeah, he was great.
Yeah. I mean, what's not to like? Now, just to get a bit of background, are you at all familiar with the Kingsman / The Secret Service graphic novel by Mark Miller and Dave Gibbons?
I am. So I saw the movie. A friend of mine's birthday was pretty recently afterward, and so I think I saw the movie with him, or he had seen it otherwise, but we both really liked it. So I thought, I'm going to get him the comic for it. So I went to a bookstore, got the comic, got a gift wrap there, took it home, and then I thought, well, I really kind of want to read this comic. I know I'm about to give it to him. So, apologies to the birthday boy. He slid it a little bit out of the packing and then read it, and then put it back in and gave it to him. And I thought it was great. Um, I thought it was really interesting. I'm glad that Matthew Vaughn did things with the movie that were not part of the comic. I think it was above being a great movie. It was a very, very good way to do an adaptation.
It's one of the more interesting adaptations I've ever seen, and when I say interesting, I don't mean bad, because there's a lot of stuff that you can clearly see they did in the movie. There's a villain that tries to lower the population of the world via cell phones, and there's a mentor who takes on a younger person like from the streets and teaches them how to be a spy. And there's lots of stuff that you can clearly see they borrowed.
Yeah.
But a lot of other differences were, I say, very, very different. There's no like Kingsman tailor shop, at least in the issues that I read, and things like that. And it's clear they took the idea and went with it. So there's faithful adaptations, there's unfaithful adaptations, but then there's adaptations that keep the spirit of whatever they're adapting within it. And I think that definitely did it. So I mean, I read it way after I saw the movie, like you, but still, I enjoyed the graphic novel and I enjoyed the movie, and I was really, really excited when I found out that this was going to happen. It's like, yeah, more of this stuff. This is a franchise that I can get behind. Take notes, DC. And then something weird happened.
Yes.
I think it went weird, but it's okay. Do you think it went weird, but it's okay?
I think in terms of the franchise moving forward, Kingsman can recover. But as a movie, I think it went weird, but I don't think it was okay.
Oh, so we've got a bit of differences of opinion over here. I like it.
Wonderful.
Yeah, and so first of all, we have to talk about. I mean, I've got mixed feelings about this because the marketing for this movie clearly showed Colin Firth front and center. Oh, he's back, and he's clearly survived the head wound. Now, on the one hand, this would be very, 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 very difficult to keep under wraps, especially in today's climate of people hunting for spoilers and getting shots from the movie and, prints from the movie getting copied and stuff like that. This will be very, very hard to keep a secret. I don't think, however, that means that they shouldn't have at least tried.
I agree. I thought the movie itself, the way it was put together, almost would have allowed this secret, even if maybe it got out a little bit in sort of the spoiler internet territory. But I think it would have been intact because there was that very brief scene early in the film. It's a quick little flashback that features Colin Firth and Taron Egerton. They have a sweet little scene, and the point is that Taron Egerton is missing him. He's sad. And I thought that was a great emotional beat. And when I first saw that, I knew, of course, the Colin Firth eye patch and all would show up later. But I thought, had I not known that, I could have very well thought that throughout the movie we would have these little pockets of cameos that, because he's such a big name, would result in him being credited on the poster. I think they could have gotten away within the movie by making you think it's going to be that, and then there was that great reveal, hampered by the trailers and all the marketing of him actually being alive. So I completely agree with you. I think it's something to help preserve that.
Yeah, because at this point, I don't know about you, but when I was watching the movie, I was enjoying the movie, but I was just waiting for Colin Firth to come back. I was waiting to see Harry Hart again. And it's that sort of like, I'm like, okay, when are we getting to it? When are we getting to it? And, I think we're going to do? I think we're just going to go right into the plot and start talking about it. So
sounds great.
We pick off the film. I don't know whether to say the film begins with hitting the ground running or just sort of like giving you a bit of whiplash. Because, when it starts, it doesn't give you a moment to breathe. Immediately we see Eggsy, he's coming out of Kingsman's tailor shop. He's looking all dapper and smart. And the next thing we know we see is the guy from the last film who I forgot about and couldn't recognize until I remembered. Oh, yeah, it's that guy. And the movie kindly reminded me. It turns out he's still alive. He's back. He's got a mechanical arm. And they go into a big chase in a cab with lots of different cars. And I'd like to point out, this is not like 5 minutes into the movie or even 3 minutes. This is minute 1.
Mm-hmm.
Barely even 30 seconds. And he's like, get in the car. Bam. Poof, pah, pah. And so, I could see why some people would like that. I was like, could we not have a second? Maybe? Just like...
Yeah.
You know, what's he been up to all this time? How has he been getting on? That comes after the chase scene. And, I mean, fair enough, but still, you know, I just got over all the trailers that were before the movie. You know, give me a minute to breathe here.
Yeah, I thought maybe this was an homage to the Bond pre-credit sequences where it is right into the action. But even still, I've seen all the Bond movies. I know them well. I can't think of a Bond movie that even with that immediate, you know, burst of action before anything really happens with the plot, there isn't at least some build-up to that action within, you know, the pre-credit sequence.
Even
but here,
even with a lot of Bond films where there is an action sequence, it's done in a way like I remember the first. It was GoldenEye when, you know, Pierce Brosnan jumps off that big dam thing, and that's a pretty action thing. But it's shot in a way that's on a graceful. And it's like, ooh, who's this guy? Oh, it's James Bond, and he's in the bathroom, and he says "forgot to knock," and he punches that guy out.
Absolutely.
Pierce Brosnan is my favorite Bond, by the way. I don't care what Sean Connery fans say. I know you have Sean Connery as your Skype logo thing, Machiko.
I do. I've reconsidered a bit, but when I was younger, Pierce Brosnan was my favorite. Tomorrow Never Dies was my favorite film. I was not popular with that opinion.
I think it's fine. I think it's good. You. Yeah. Oh, speaking of, there's a connection there because actually, the thing about Halle Berry was in the last movie he did for James Bond, and she's in this movie too. So
yes, she is.
Yeah, she's there. She's present. She's in it.
It's fine. Yeah.
We'll get to her. So they have a fight scene. It's a pretty cool fight scene. A lot of it is CGI, but it's done in a way that it's not too bad. I thought it was pretty cool, and it goes on for quite a while.
It does. I think for me, the action sequence did a little more than just action. It did start to get the plot rolling. It reestablished the Eggsy Merlin relationship, which I really liked. May have been one of my favorite points of the first movie and this movie. So it did something by the end of it. But yeah, I do really agree with you. I wish we had that breather in the beginning. And I wish that if we were going to jump right into it, that it had been more, I'm not sure how to phrase this, but it had been a little more Bondian in its stunts, where, like you were saying about GoldenEye, where it was maybe one big set piece, one big action, instead of a little bit more of the same CGI car chase, which was great and had specific sort of trailer moments that made me stop and go, wow, that's really an awesome visual. But there were somehow a little too many of them, but not enough of a punch for each one of them is how I felt.
Yeah, I mean, but the problem is that sort of thing fits more with, Matthew Vaughn's first time using this word, oeuvre. I don't know if that's right, because he's the guy who does the big. Well, he's with Kingsman. That scene in the church in the first movie with Freebird is printed onto my neocortical lobe. It's there. I love that scene so much, and that's not very Bond, but I think it fits Kingsman. But that was a bit more polished and a bit more punchy, and made perfect sense. I mean, because here's the thing: in that scene, you can clearly hear Freebird playing, and it fits the beats because, like, you hear like strums of the guitar when he shoots someone or stabs someone. And here, there's a song playing in the car because it's the sort of like Edgar Wright thing where we have, Guardians of the Galaxy thing where we have some songs playing over some big action scene, big popular songs. Problem is, over the action stuff and all the zooms and the flashes and the punches and the crashes, I couldn't really hear what the song was, and it didn't really mesh.
Yeah, I completely agree. There's playing on like the radio in the back, right?
Yeah, basically, yeah. And I mean that's fine reason for the song to be there. I mean, I think that comes under is that the definition of diegetic sound? Yeah,
that is the definition.
Yeah, okay. I did not go to film school where I did a screenwriting courses, so I don't know all the terms. Yeah, so I mean, I was fine with that there. It just could have been done a bit. I mean, I think that one of the best ways of defining this movie, at least from my perspective, is, if I was being quite harsh, is good, but not quite there.
Yes.
Yeah, that chase scene was good, but not quite there. And then it ends with Eggsy, parking car in an underground bunker thing, sort of thing, and then popping off down a sewer pipe to meet his girlfriend, the Princess of Sweden, because this is his thing. I want to say that I'm glad that they kept her from the last movie, 'cause even though she was very, very minimal appearance in that movie, because I mean, one of the things that annoys me about Bond is that each different movie, it's a different Bond woman and stuff. And that guy, he's a very good secret agent, but clearly he's crap at making long-term relationships work. Clearly.
Absolutely.
He marries one person and that person dies like 5 minutes later.
Half of it's him, half of it might just be really bad luck.
Yeah, but think about it, is the amount of women he's gone out with, that he's been involved with, you think at least, I mean, laws of probability, man, come on.
You're absolutely right.
But here, actually, they are in a long-term relationship. They are committed, and it's kept over from the last one. He's not involved with some new totty. He's actually, he cares about her, and she cares about him, and that's rather nice. We'll talk about more about that later on. But here's the thing, the guy, what was his name? Charlie. As that was his name is. Charlie had a mechanical arm, big robot arm, which he probably stole from that guy from Logan, and he left it in the car that Eggsy drove away with, and it automatically goes into the car's stuff and hacks its computer, which apparently has a database on all the info on Kingsman in this one car. It just has it all there. I mean, it's kind of like storing the entire internet in Air Force One. I mean,
yes.
That seems like that could go horribly wrong. And Merlin doesn't think to secure the arm. Like, he doesn't say, hey, Eggsy, before you go off to meet your girlfriend, could you just maybe pop that arm out because we don't know what kind of technology it uses and we should maybe have a look at it or something like that? No, he just leaves it in there. Yeah,
and maybe this would have worked in the first movie where Eggsy was still learning and just out of training, but assuming this takes place in real time, he's been a spy, a super spy, for a little under 2 years now. And he's saved the world at least once. And you'd think he'd remember his protocol about not leaving foreign enemy robot parts in a company car.
Yeah. It's just good sense. And then I think we meet Michael Gambon as the new Arthur. I don't know where they got him from, but he just turned up and he's Arthur now. And I'm just going to say it, this movie is a waste of Michael Gambon. It does not use its Michael Gambon effectively and efficiently.
I agree. I think as a larger problem, this movie does not use a lot of its big name stars, or maybe not big name stars, but good, quality actors, as good as it could have.
Oh, we're going to get on to Jeff Bridges later. Jeff Bridges.
Yeah, but look at Michael Caine in the first one. He wasn't in it for all that much, and he had, aside from the one scene at the end where he's revealed to be in on Samuel L. Jackson's coup, he didn't really do a whole lot. He could have been replaced by another. Maybe Merlin could have done his work, but he didn't need to be there. But every scene he was in, Matthew Vaughn was aware that you have this presence in the room, and he gravitated the whole scene around him, around the way he commanded that table of Kingsman.
Yeah, when he told Eggsy to shoot his dog, I was like, oh my god, Michael Caine, why? Why would you do that?
And Michael Gambon is perfectly capable of doing that too, even with the short amount of screen time, and he just didn't. He just didn't get the chance to.
No, I mean, because what happens next is, because they hack the database, the new villain of the movie, which we'll get to in a second, blows up all of Kingsman. Like, every single address and stuff that they're in, they blow up with missiles, and this doesn't make the news, that missiles appeared all over the UK and blew up several major residences and streets in the UK, and no one comments on this. Like, oh, that's just an average Thursday, really. I mean, it happens. And Michael Gambon dies before saying, "Oh fuck!" And this is another annoyance I have with this movie. Is it has a real fetish with making people that don't usually swear say the word "fuck." Like they think it thinks it's the funniest thing ever, and it is kind of funny once, maybe twice. It keeps on doing it and keeps on doing it. Like, oh my god, that guy said "fuck." We don't normally think of him saying fuck. Wow, isn't that so funny? The bricklayer's lament. Who's on first? Dead parrot? What's that? We made Michael Gambon say the F word.
Yeah, and I thought that type of joke was good in the first one when Colin Firth did it, when Michael Caine did it.
Yeah, when he said "you little shit," like that's cool, but
yeah, exactly. It's a little old now, and that's what I felt about a lot of those. Sort of out there, a couple of gross out, a lot of cursing, like those kind of jokes. They were really funny and really sharp and novel in the first one. The novelty's worn off by now.
Yeah.
So in
You
the
need
in
to
the
try
some
something
point,
new. You can't rely on these sort of things. And the worst part about that bit is that it kills off Roxy, one of the
yes,
characters from the first movie. And I mean that character, I think, not just in this movie, but in the whole thing in general, just got underused again. Because in the last
absolutely.
movie, she got hoisted up into a balloon and had to take out a satellite, which was a very
Mm.
important thing in the plot. But still, she didn't get any action scenes or anything. And this one, she helps Eggsy, with etiquette when he's meeting like the prince, the king and the queen of Sweden, and then gets blown up. And that's all she does.
Yeah, that was such a shame. That and JB, his dog, that was tragic too.
Oh yeah,
Well,
poor JB the dog and his friend Brandon.
yeah,
But
but
yeah, but
Roxy especially, just what a massive. It's one thing to have, let's say, Halle Berry or Jeff Bridges in a movie and not use them. It's another thing to take a character from the first movie that felt purposefully underdeveloped because it just didn't fit in the first movie. Someone who was very clearly being set up to become a bigger part of the story in a later movie, and then kill her off. So I don't want to say unceremoniously, but so quickly, so unfortunately that
yeah,
really.
it'd be like if they killed Princess Leia in the first 10 minutes of Empire Strikes Back.
Exactly. And yeah, maybe, they'd find another character to take her place, but we spent a whole movie knowing just enough about her to want to know more. And that was just taken away very quickly.
Yeah, and so Eggsy and Merlin are basically the only people that survived, and yeah, they're a bit sad. But eventually, they follow a bunch of clues and stuff, which leads them to Statesman, which is like the American equivalent. And I thought this was a really cool idea.
Yeah,
And yeah, you're happy that they're American equivalent. No, look at them with the English with their suits and their bald hats and their umbrellas. No, we got guys with lassos. Yeah.
absolutely. I can say, speaking for the entire country, the United States of America, it was great to see a handful of these cartoonish Southern stereotypes representing America.
Yeah.
But it was very funny. I thought the whole aesthetic was a lot of fun, the same way that the aesthetic of Kingsman was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
It was cool. I like the little connection they had with Kentucky. I completely forgot that's where the church scene took place in the last movie. So to see that
Yeah.
those dots connected was a fun little moment. I thought the actors they picked to be the statesman were cool. I thought it being like a whiskey, like a whiskey
Tequila,
plant.
champagne.
Yeah,
All those little things. I mean, the great thing about this idea is that you could pretty much do it with almost any country in the world. You could have a French equivalent,
absolutely.
you could have a Japanese equivalent, and stuff like that. And so, I mean, I hope if there are sequels that they don't rely on this trope too much. Like, oh look, here's the Spanish version or the Italian version or the Australian version,
Yeah.
or stuff like that. Because otherwise, it'll just get a bit dated and stuff. Having said that, while I do think a lot of the stuff they use with Statesman is very cool, they're not really developed. I thought in
No.
a very interesting way. The whole movie could have been about them versus Kingsman or something
Yeah.
like that. But instead, I mean, they're there. They're there for. In fact, no, they're there for two reasons. One, they're there to reveal, oh, by the way, Harry Hart survived and he's been with us this whole time. And two, to give the defeated, the blown up Kingsman some more resources. And that's basically there. Once they've done that, you could write them out of the whole movie and not much will be left lost.
Yeah, it felt like they didn't know if they wanted this to be a spin-off. They wanted them to be in it as a cameo. They wanted it to be a versus movie. There's so many ways it could have gone, and they just sort of had the statesman linger in the middle.
Yeah, because I mean, the backstory for Kingsman is that there used to be genuinely a tailor shop that catered to the elite of the elite, and then World War One happened, and all the children of the elite died, and they were like, well, holy crap, you know what? We've been making their suits for so long. Maybe we should actually, make sure something like this doesn't happen again.
Yeah.
Where were they during World War Two? But aside from that, that's the origin of Kingsman.
Yeah.
What's the origin of Statesman?
I think they just said, yeah, same here.
Okay, yeah.
Something like
the
that.
English are doing something. Let's copy them. Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, they could have gone into like a thing where it could have been born out of the Civil War or something, the American
Sure.
Civil War. And there's lots of different ways you could do it. Even if it's just a passing reference, like, oh, so how did you guys get started out? Well, moving on.
Yeah.
and it's little things like that that give some more context and makes it seem more real as opposed to just an Americanized version of Kingsman, you know?
Absolutely. And in the first movie, that backstory line about Kingsman was delivered very quickly. It was not it was, like you said, it was an offhand comment, but just those couple of sentences gave a lot of weight to why Kingsmen were doing what they're doing. And maybe why they felt they could be so unchecked in what they did, maybe why they would have to resort to the extreme violence. It let them, it may have let them do more and go a little further, even though there was no government backing to them. Whereas with Statesman, I'll take them on their word for that. I'll believe that they're doing this for noble reasons, but it would have been nice to have that backing behind it.
Yeah. And it also, their presence raises the question of, okay, so the main antagonist of the movie, Poppy, destroys Kingsman because she's working with this Charlie guy. But she doesn't destroy Statesman. Why? Is it because she didn't know they existed? Or was if there were a big spy agency that could have gotten her, then by all means, yeah, that would have been very useful for her to take them out. But Statesman pretty much do the exact same thing. She didn't target them. Why?
No, I don't know. As we later find out, there's somebody in Statesman that is working with her.
That's the thing. See, I don't know if he is. We'll get to that later. But we'll put a pin in this. We'll put a pin in this because I've got some stuff to say about this as well.
Yes.
So they have the classic, a bit of a misunderstanding. So they have a bit of a duff up, and then we're introduced to Champagne, played by Jeff Bridges. He's the Arthur equivalent, and Ginger Ale, played by Halle Berry, who is the
Merlin
equivalent. Yeah. And Halle Berry, I'm one of those people that think that Halle Berry can act well and has acted well in many movies. She gave the bare minimum in this movie. She wasn't bad, but she wasn't, really trying very hard.
I agree.
Yeah. It was just...
And for me, the same can be said about Jeff Bridges. I thought.
But when Jeff Bridges doesn't try, he's still Jeff Bridges.
That's true. He has that natural gravitas about him that nothing, even the worst of scripts, even the least of effort could never take it away. Yeah. But yeah, I felt the same way about Jeff Bridges.
Yeah, and again, it's a bit of a waste because he's Champagne, call me champ, and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But he basically just sits around a ballroom. He doesn't do. How cool would it have been to see Jeff Bridges with one of those lassos or those bull whips or those six shooters or something, just for a scene, a brief scene even. And just him doing that. Fucking hell, even in Men in Black 2, we got a scene of Rip Torn kicking Lara Flynn Boyle multiple times in the face. We got that in Men in Black 2. We can't have that for Kingsman Golden Circle. Come on.
And all the lasso stuff and the rest, that's all CGI anyway. All he has to do is show up and stand somewhere. They can take care of the rest of the
if he can have do action scenes in R.I.P.D., he can do action scenes for this movie. Jeez, he's basically the same character as well. Oh god. We get that, and it turns out they've got this miracle head wound cure that can.
Yeah.
Okay. So these movies are ridiculous. They have grenades disguised as cigarette lighters and stuff like that. So I won't be one of those guys who questions the logic. I won't. But even as this kind of logic goes, this is a stretch.
It is. And it for me, it reminded me a lot of the end of Star Trek Into Darkness.
Where
you have...
I solved mortality!
Yeah, you have the cure for death. And again, like here, it's in that movie, it has to do with the character's blood. And in this movie, it's, some technology that Statesmen have come up with. So they're both explained within the movies. They both there is some logical progression in the movie. But it doesn't, in Star Trek, anyone can now come back from the dead. Here, anyone can come back, as we later see in the movie, can come back from a head wound with very, very few effects if you know what to do right after they reanimate.
And the worst part is they don't make this medical technology available to the public. Do you know how many hospitals would pay through the nose to get their hands on something that would save a person's life from a head wound?
Absolutely.
Jeez, and I can understand why a lot of the technology they have they don't share because it's mostly weapons and surveillance stuff. That stuff that needs to be kept out of the hands of most people. But this is something that can only be used to save lives.
Yeah. And it seems a little easy too.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't want to, take away from the movie science behind it, but you kind of just wrap a guy's head, you put in, what looks like two different types of laundry detergent, they mix, and then he wakes up. You're right. It seems like the most, wonderful, accessible new medical technology, and it's just for statesmen. That doesn't gel with what I assume their mission is.
Yeah, and then we're introduced to Harry Hart, but oh no, he's got memory loss, and he's back to like where he was before he joined the army, before he joined Kingsman, when he wanted to be a lepidopterist, studying butterflies. That in the first movie? Because I don't remember that bit with that little.
I remember they flashed back to showing all of the butterflies in his house. And I remember seeing that in the first movie. I have no idea if they had this planned out, or I can't remember if he said a line. But I didn't think any of it when I saw the first movie. I thought, well, what's a habit that, what's a hobby that a lot of rich aristocrats, lepidoptery, butterfly stuff.
Yeah. Why not? Goes, I'm terribly English and upper class. I guess I study butterflies and write long poems about young children that die due to sadness. And that's basically it. That's basically what we are as a culture. And it's around this time we're properly introduced to the main villain, played by Julianne Moore. Julianne Moore, very good actor, gives a good performance in this. The character is suitably quirky. She is nowhere near as good as character as Valentine, the main antagonist from the last one. Because Valentine was interesting because he was doing bad things, but he had a lot of humanity about him, and not just in motivations, but in his character and his mannerisms and stuff like that. And yeah, he worked perfectly as a bad guy, because that's the thing. So you can make a bad guy so sympathetic and so likable and relatable, he doesn't really work as a bad guy. That wasn't the case with Samuel L. Jackson. It was perfect. It was the right amount of, oh yeah, I like this guy, and oh, he's the bad guy, and I'm okay with this.
Absolutely.
Here, it feels like a caricature of that same idea.
Yes, it feels like they looked at Samuel L. Jackson's character and said, what do people like about him? They like a villain plot that has sort of a gray area issue. In the first movie, it was global warming, and here it's the war on drugs, and her position is, she through her evil plan where she's happy to kill millions to have her way done, she wants to end the war on drugs and open up the drug market for her profit.
And it is an interesting idea. I think it's just when it revolves around her character, because all she basically does is smile while she does horrible things, like
disgusting things.
Yeah, like she kills Keith Allen, poor Keith Allen, by shoving him headfirst into a meat grinder, well, ordering her one of her subordinates to shove him headfirst in a meat grinder, and then makes a burger out of him while smiling and being like, she's basically if Lucy from I Love Lucy just went crazy.
Well, to your point about Lucy, so she's hiding away in Cambodia. She's wanted by everybody in the world, but she's built Poppyland, which I remember seeing in a magazine, flipping through about Kingsman promotional stuff, and it's awesome. It is this sort of, jungle, hidden jungle area that she has transformed into the 50s nostalgic world that she misses, that she grew up with. It's great. It's this very perverse sort of Disney Tomorrowland theme. It's the great, perfect Kingsman villain aesthetic. So many options, and they do a good job of, through the fight scenes and just through going around it, they do a good job of showing off the fun of the place as an aesthetic and as a set. But that was all they did for her. They left her as part of that.
She's kooky, she's quirky, but there's not much to her.
Yeah.
And the plan, as you say, is interesting. She wants to open the drug trade, and the reason is because, like, she views, and this is a view that a lot of people have, that her stuff is just as damaging as legal drugs, but it's just viewed as worse. And it's kind of interesting because Statesman makes its money by selling liquor, like alcohol, which is destroyed so many lives, and yet they're making bundles of money, and it's all perfectly legal. And it brings up an interesting point and stuff, and this is an issue I had with the original Kingsman.
Yes.
Again, because that brought up another interesting point, like overpopulation. Very real problem though in our planet. Our planet is dying because there are too many of us and it can't handle, there aren't enough resources and stuff and aren't enough space and things like that. And obviously, but killing people to solve that problem is bad, obviously, and they have to stop it. But they never go back to, like, actually discussing, like, hey, is there an alternative, or have we just doomed the planet? They don't fully explore the implications. And this is something that a lot of movies have done recently. There was the latest Da Vinci Code, Angels and Demons movie. I can't remember what it's called. What was it called? It was crap anyway, but still. That had a similar problem, like, oh, the population problem. Oh, he's going to kill millions of people. We have to stop him. Oh, we stopped him. But then there's still billions of people, and that's a bad thing. Oh, we got to discuss this. And they did this again with the Sacha Baron Cohen movie, Grimsby Brothers, which Mark Strong was also in. Exact same. I was really angry at that movie because it had the exact same plot as Kingsman, basically. Spies, population control, secret bounty, and none of these movies. I mean, it's all great. It's great that you're introducing, as you say, these grey area villain plans. Because we've seen plenty of villains do doomsday projects like, I'm going to blow up the world. Why? Because money or power or fame or whatever. But it's rare that we get a villain that's doing something, actually, I'm trying to do a good thing by doing a bad thing. But if you're going to bring that up, you have to explore the moral implications. You have to have the discussion. Because otherwise, we're going to be left like slightly... I'm getting philosophical blue balls. That's what I'm saying.
That's a good way to frame it. And in this movie, they did a little more than the first one. I don't think to this movie's advantage. But they do have a bit.
There was a bit where it turns out like one of the underlings of the president, it turns out, is a recreational drug user because of the stresses of her job, but she's dismissed by the president as, oh, you're just another junkie and a lawbreaker and stuff like that. And they're trying to show, I guess in a not very subtle way, the callous disregard that a lot of people have for people that use drugs. And that's good that that's in there, but it's a bit, but it's not enough.
Yeah, and it's more than on those. I think it's cartoonish. I mean, I'm sure people, I guarantee people do think that. It is a very hot button topic, perhaps more specifically in American culture than elsewhere in the world. But it felt like, not only, at least in the first movie, they bring up the topic, but they don't talk about the moral implications. In this movie, they do talk about them, but they didn't handle it with the respect or even just the time it would take to talk about it. It might have just been better to cut out that whole president little subplot entirely. Maybe it is better, like in the first movie.
I mean, I like Bruce Greenwood as much as the next guy, but
Yeah, and it was great. I'll see him in anything. But it was just there's another Star Trek Into Darkness connection for you.
Oh yeah, but, God. And a Batman connection. No. Sorry. So that's going on, and she's working with Charlie, and they've got a cool back and forth. But I'll tell you what, for all this movie's faults, it does have this one bright, shining star. This wonderful, glorious thing that I will never sacrifice. Even if it meant the rest of the movie was better, I'd keep this one bit. Elton John!
Oh, God. I remember coming across an article months ago saying Elton John to make a cameo appearance in the movie. It might have been just as soon as they released it was coming out. And I thought, well, that's great. Mark Hamill had a very brief role, not as himself, but a very brief role in the first one. There was all these celebrity kidnappings, and I thought, that's fun. Like, what a great time to see him here. And then very early on, when we meet him for the first time, he's Poppy's prisoner, and she has this great little line, this little universe-building line, where she goes, well, in the first movie, all these celebrities are being kidnapped, so I thought, let me take one of my own, and no one would notice. But he's in this for a good chunk. I mean,
it's not a cameo; it's an actual role. I mean, Elton John is a character in this movie.
Yeah, and he's such a breath of as for me as I was watching it, and I started liking the movie less and less, and my disappointment was starting to grow. Every time I saw him on screen was such a joy, and he was having such a great time, and you could feel that good time vicariously through him. That was great as an audience member.
Yeah, I mean, I've only ever seen him act once before in an episode of Will & Grace when he reveals that he's part of the gay mafia, which was an awesome scene as well. Will makes a joke about the gay mafia, and Elton John is very casually like, don't joke, it's real. And he's good. He's great. Again, I mean, it started off annoyingly because it went to the same trope that we were talking about earlier about him saying, fuck off when she probably asked him to play. And it's like, oh, you made Elton John say fuck. And there's quite a lot for the movie. But that aside, I mean, he's brilliant. He's brilliant. We could spend all day talking about the myriad things that he has done in this movie that are badass and awesome.
Yeah. But look, I didn't like this movie. I don't even know if I would. I may not recommend this movie to everybody, but I would recommend seeing this movie if you're an Elton John fan. Period. It's such a delight. He alone is worth the price of admission.
He's just great, and so after that, Statesman and Kingsman team up. We don't get Tequila played by Channing Tatum teaming up with them. Yeah. We get Whiskey played by Pedro Pascal, is that his name?
Yes, he was Oberyn Martell on Game of Thrones, and he was on Narcos. I think he's the star of Narcos in season 3.
I don't know, I haven't seen Narcos, but I do know that he was in one episode of Buffy the Vampire Slayer. So there's that to go with. But yeah, I mean, he's a great actor. I really liked him in Game of Thrones, and he's great in this. And he's a lot of fun. And it starts with them going to So I think there's a scene where they're in a bar and Harry has just got his memories back and stuff, and they've managed to get him a bit fixed out, but he's still got a lot of problems. He's seeing hallucinatory butterflies, and it's a cool send up of the scene from the first Kingsman where Harry Hart beats up a bunch of people in a pub. Here they're in a bar. And he tries to beat up a bunch of people, but he's a bit rusty and doesn't do a very good job. So Whiskey comes in and kicks their ass, and he's cool with the lasso and the bullwhip, and that's really awesome.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun. I've never seen, I mean, even with Wonder Woman, I've never really seen a lasso used in action sequences like this. That was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Is 2017 the year of the lasso action sequence?
Yeah, and he uses a whip, which if Castlevania has taught me anything, is effective.
Yeah.
And so then Whiskey and Eggsy go to Glastonbury Music Festival, and he has to seduce Charlie's ex-girlfriend Clara, played by, I think it's Poppy Delevingne. I didn't even know there was another Delevingne. So I guess they're like Middletons. They're just these vaguely posh people just pop up everywhere. It's like, hello, I'm in things now. Okay, and that's kind of fun. But then it's revealed that Eggsy has got to actually, seduce her properly in order to complete the mission, and this puts a bit of a strain on his relationship with the Princess of Sweden. And it's interesting because he can kind of see his point, like the fate of the world as it state, but you can also see her point, like, hey, maybe don't have sexual congress with someone else, maybe, just by any chance. And then there's a whole thing with, like, him accidentally sort of proposing, but then revealing, actually, I can't really marry you because being a prince is kind of difficult for a spy, which they ignore later on, but anyway. Yeah. And so that happens.
Yeah. And this whole scene, was it the Glastonbury? Glastonbury. The whole Glastonbury scene, though some parts of it I think were cool story points, like the continuing of the relationship between him and the princess. I thought that was really interesting. Another point where I see both sides of it, like, I'm sure they can take the relationship to the next level, but he's a spy. Being a prince would be hard. I totally get that. They wasted at the end. You're right, but I any chance to make their relationship the focal point of a scene, I'll take.
Yeah.
However, and okay, before I go to the however, one other quick thing: when he and Whiskey are both trying to sort of verbally seduce and buy the ex-girlfriend a drink, there's a couple, there's some banter, there's some witticism. That's a lot of fun too. Nice classic first Kingsman movie, like the scene when he, Charlie, and Roxy all go to the club and they try to, there's another fun callback. Then they go into the tent, and I had a lot of problems with this scene because it was I don't mind that it sort of went for such a it's such an out there, such like a brazen joke. That's fine. If anything, the Kingsman franchise is built on that. And the last shot of the first movie is at the time maybe about as out there of a joke as you can get, and that worked really well. Except here, I think that whole vibe, the whole maybe subversion of the James Bond spy, James Bond woman relationship thing. It didn't really work this time because the whole issue of consent got really muddled in there.
Yeah.
And I thought that was a real shame because it could have any opportunity for laughter for me anyway. I just couldn't do it there. It just wasn't funny, and I wanted to see him do his mission, and maybe even to save all those lives, something that unfortunate might even be worth it. But it's very hard to think about weighing that in my head while also trying to laugh, because I think it wanted me to laugh while also watching it happen. There's a lot of stuff to think about at once.
It's weird because this is based on a comic book by Mark Millar, and yet this is one of the things that wasn't in the original Mark Millar comic. This feels like something that would be in one of his comic books, but it wasn't.
Mm-hmm.
It was weird. Thankfully, it's over eventually.
It is.
And turns out that Poppy's big master plan is that she's laced all the drugs that she's ever made, which apparently is all the drugs in the world, with this poison that will make everyone get blue veins and stuff all over them, blue rashes and stuff, and then start dancing, hilarious, and eventually go to paralysis and then die with their eyes exploding. That was surprisingly gory for this movie. Even, I mean, we've had gory scenes in these movies. That was surprisingly gory. Like, you actually see eyeballs burst out of a man's socket.
Yeah, that was something. And they kept, every time they showed a scene about it, there'd just be another one right in front of the camera that happened. It was a little much.
Yeah, just a little bit much. But turns out there is an antidote, and she's going to basically hold the world hostage until all drugs are made legal, and that she receives immunity. And as villain plans go, it's not a bad one.
No, not at all.
But then the president sort of calls a bluff. It's like, oh yeah, we're going to play along, but we're really not gonna, and we're going to let all the junkies die. And it's, as you say, it's very over the top and very cartoonish. And
it is. It's a little weird.
Although then again, considering the current president of the United States, I mean, maybe it's the most realistic that we've ever seen.
Yeah. Jokes like that are a little more complicated now that we have a Trump presidency. It's hard to tell if, did they write the script before he was elected? But even still, you could sort of get where he was going at. It's hard to tell if things are a reference or not. It doesn't really matter at the end of the day. No. It works as, trying to be an allegory or make a political point either way. But yeah, it did complicate things a bit. It's hard to not think it wasn't some kind of a reference. But who knows?
Who knows? I mean, if they were going that way, I mean, they could have gone a guy who looks like Trump. And,
yeah, in the first.
I mean, because Bruce Greenwood does not look like Trump. He has actual charisma, so
Yes. In the first movie, Valentine meets with someone that looks like President Obama. I mean,
he pretty much is Obama, but you only see him from behind, and he sounds like Obama. He's never directly called Obama. What I like about that is, as much as I do like Obama, he does turn out to be technically one of the bad guys, or at least allowing the bad guy to go with the plan, and his head gets blown up. This guy is just as bad, as not worse, and spoiler for the ending, he just gets impeached and arrested.
Yeah.
Apparently, all it takes to get impeached in America today is just nearly kill a bunch of people in America or allow them to die. But many, many other things won't get you impeached.
No, but somehow setting up massive, illegal football stadium prisons in a couple of weeks.
Which no one was reporting the fact that, hey, a lot of people are going in those places, but no one's coming out. Or we're not allowed to report on what's going on in there. No one's phoning, texting, oh my god, fucking help me. They put us in cages, like individual cages with no water or beds or chairs or anything like. They're actually stacking up on us on top of each other like Jenga. How did they manage to put all this technology together at such short notice? And why the hell did you can't keep a secret like this? Not in today's America.
Well, I hate to nitpick, but the stadium they showed was an open air stadium. All you need
People have drones.
You just need someone to fly over and say, well, that doesn't look like a football game. And there you go, and that's it.
I don't know. That seems suspicious, doesn't it? Yeah, it does. It's unbelievable. This is like worse than the Ghostbusters reboot, where they discredited the fact that ghosts exist when a ghost appeared in a room full of people with fucking GoPros taped to their heads.
Yeah.
I mean, jeez. But anyway, it turns out there is an antidote, and so Eggsy, Whiskey, and a newly recovered Harry head to it in Italy to try and get it.
Mm-hmm.
And here's where the idea of Whiskey being a traitor is brought up for the first time, because he says, "Hey, that antidote, can I see it?" And then he accidentally smashes it when a bunch of goons come by. But they try to trick us into thinking that he wasn't a bad guy by him killing all the bad guys. And I thought, oh, is this movie actually going to be clever? Is it going to make us think that actually he secretly is a bad guy, but it turns out it's not. He's not, and it's all just a massive coincidence.
Yeah. Or maybe Harry really is delusional. He's not all together. Can we trust a guy, not because he's bad, but just because he's not all there?
Yeah, and no, spoiler alert, no, Whiskey is entirely a bad guy.
Yeah.
It's never made exactly clear if he is definitely working with Poppy or he's just allowing her plan to go on. But we'll get to that in a bit later because I have some stuff to say. But basically, Harry...
Oh, I do, yeah.
Yeah, Harry basically shoots Whiskey in the head and Eggsy goes off on one. He's like, what the hell? Quite rightly. And but Whiskey lives and Harry and Merlin go to...
Doesn't work.
Sorry?
You'd think of all people, Harry would know a headshot does not work.
Yeah. Shoot him in the stomach, let him bleed out or something, I don't know. Shoot him in the heart. Can they replace the heart? I don't know. But it's basically... We can never have another headshot in these movies again, ever.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But Eggsy, Harry, and Merlin discover the location of Poppy's hideout, and it turns out that Princess... what's her name?
Tildy, I think?
Yes, that's it, Tildy. She's a drug user, as most royalty are. I'm allowed to say that because I live in a monarchy. But and she's gonna die, basically. So, now the race is on to definitely get the antidote and stop this whole thing. And they go to Cambodia, and then a sad thing happens. Merlin, who the first... Well, actually, a sad/stupid thing, because Merlin and Ginger Ale... played by Halle Berry, have this little conversation with, Halle's like, do you think, wouldn't it be cool to get out in the field? And Merlin's like, no, what we do is just as important. And I thought they were going to be, show the difference between, Ginger wants to get out there, but Merlin's like, no, I'm fine where I am. And you know what? Just because I'm not doing action stuff doesn't make me important. And I thought that would be a really cool and mature thing to do. You could because you're not necessarily convincing Ginger, actually, you're better off here. But showing, it doesn't matter who you are, as long as what you're doing helps and it's okay with you.
Mm-hmm.
But then, no, he puts on a suit and he goes out in the field, despite, 3 scenes earlier saying, actually, you know what, I don't really want to go out in the field.
Yeah.
But who cares? It's Mark Strong kicking ass. I like that. Then he steps on a landmine, or rather, Eggsy steps on a landmine and he sacrifices himself to save Eggsy, puts himself on the landmine instead. We get a very sad scene with him seeing... Country Road, Take Me Home. And it's very, very cool. And then he blows himself up, taking some of the bad guys with him. And it's really sad.
I thought that might have been, maybe not the most, far from the most fun scene in the movie. That might have been my favorite story-wise. Merlin was always my favorite character. Mark Strong was always one of, top 2 favorite actors in these movies. He was so great. And I did not see it coming. I absolutely did not. But and on top of that, I thought, well, even if he did die in some ways, you can just bring him back. But,
no, he's in pieces. Maybe, but I don't know.
That's pretty definitive. But I thought, listen, anyone can get shot at this point. But then Eggsy steps on the landmine, and the moment where Merlin takes his place is really meaningful. And the little salute that Harry gives him, it had to punch. And to hear Mark Strong's beautiful baritone voice, singing Country Road.
Take me home, country road, to the place where I belong.
It was great. That was a really good moment. I'm a little sad. Of course I'm sad that my favorite character in these movies won't be around. But I couldn't think of a better way for him to go out. I thought that was great. And you're right about the stuff being a little muddled, but that aside, that moment there was earned. He did die with respect and dignity, and that was really nice. It
Yeah,
was exact
a lot
opposite.
more focus was put on him this movie. In the last movie, he had a lot of front and center scenes, but that was mainly at the end.
Mhm.
But in this scene, he's pretty much present throughout the whole thing.
Yeah.
Maybe not so much in the middle, but still, I really like that scene early in the movie where they're drinking like to all their fallen friends, and
Oh yeah.
then there's a cut, and he's crying, and he's like, oh, I miss them, I should have done more, and it's like, it's funny, but he's just like, yeah, I like this is cool.
Yeah.
And it's like, I think we should drink to Scotland. And I'm like,
That
yeah.
was great. That for me, that was the biggest laugh of the movie. That was really good.
It's great. But then he's gone. But then, so Harry and Eggsy take on all of Poppy's minions that are remaining, and Harry miraculously has gotten all of his fighting skills back.
Yeah, that was quick.
Yeah.
Very immediate, quick.
They could have had a scene or a bit in that scene where initially he doesn't do very well, but then he gets a moment of clarity or something, and then he's back to form. No, he's there. He's fine.
And not only is he back to form and fighting, he's also adapted miraculously. He's adapted all of his fighting and training to work without depth perception.
Yeah.
He's not even just going back to his former self. He's doing better in a quicker amount of time. I mean, it's allowable to have a great action sequence. Don't get me wrong, but it's a bit annoying.
Yeah. They make up for it. They make up for it by having Elton John like kicking a person's face in midair whilst winking at the camera.
That was great. That was
so God! I mean, just when you thought Elton John cameos in this movie couldn't get any better, everything is so good. It's so good, Jonathan. It's so good.
He's so good in this. You know what I would love to see, like maybe on the DVD or the Blu-ray, just a quick short film from his perspective. Just the last fight scene about him, except we're not cutting back to Eggsy and Harry. We're watching Elton John run in full rainbow peacock costume with the big glasses on, running over to then save Harry at that pivotal moment. I mean, it's so funny.
Rocket Man burning out his fuse out here alone. It was so cool, and he can act. He can say the lines perfectly well. I mean, that would have made the whole thing a bit less impactful. But he's great. He's not God's gift to the craft, but still, he's great. And he's like, Harry Hill. No, that's someone else. Harry Hart says, if we save the world, can I have a ticket to one of your next concerts? And he's like, darling, if you save the world, you can have a backstage pass. Mwah.
That was great. He's perfect camp in this, the perfect tone of what he needed to be.
Absolutely. And he helps Harry Hart defeat one of the robot dogs named Benny and Jet. Of course.
Yeah.
Of course.
Those were cool. That was a fun little Kingsman villain device.
Yeah.
I think those are cool.
Yeah, and she's got a couple of other robot minions, and yet a lot more human minions because CGI robots are expensive. She's not made of money, and they confront her, and this brings me to my biggest problem with the antagonist Poppy. She has a pretty good plan, has a lot of minions and power at her disposal. She doesn't really do a lot herself. Because now
nothing. She releases a video message telling the world of her plan.
And she electrocutes Elton John in one scene when he doesn't play piano.
Yeah, and that's it.
Because in the previous movie, Samuel L. Jackson, he was squeamish at the sight of blood, and that was a really cool idea. So he didn't do a lot of the fighting himself. But then again, he did shoot Colin Firth in the head. He was present in a lot of scenes, and he did stuff, not necessarily physical stuff, but stuff. Yeah. And she doesn't really do. She just I swear we don't even see her except for maybe like 2 bits outside of the 50s diner that she hangs out in. No.
Yeah, and Samuel L. Jackson had the McDonald's dinner scene with Colin Firth in the first movie. His relationship with Sophia Boutella was interesting. He
turned out in the Kingsman shop or just like looking for a new suit, and he had these so many great lines, like these great threatening lines, yet whilst trying to be charming, like, you English, you talk so funny, and it was cool. And here, I mean, again, I think to a certain extent, Julianne Moore was wasted in this. I don't know if she gets to play many villains,
Mm-hmm.
but here, I mean, she's kind of cool in that she's quirky and funny and lighthearted, like, yay, sunshine and rainbows, but also death and murder. But aside from that, she doesn't have that same... Because I think going back to James Bond, his relationship with all these people, there's always this nice back and forth. Do you expect me to talk?
Yes.
No, Mr. Bond, I expect you to die. Stuff like that. And that wasn't there.
Because I don't think there was any opportunity for that to be there too. Because once they do enter the diner, once they do have finally 2 hours in, maybe more, they have this conversation and they have their first face to face. It's very quick. There's nothing very engaging about it. And
she basically just stands behind the counter. They stand sit in front of the counter. They quickly inject her with a bunch of heroin. She gives them the password to distribute the antidote, and then she dies of an overdose and just falls over. And
they brush off the overdose very quickly and very casually, even for a mass murderer like her, or would-be mass murderer. It was
guys, a person has died.
Yeah, and on that same topic, right before they enter the diner, Eggsy is having his final confrontation with Charlie. And this feels earned. I mean, it's fun to see Harry Hart and Elton John take on the robot dogs, but Eggsy and Charlie, for me, was that this was the earned, emotional, one-on-one match. And the fight scene was great. But I thought at the end, just as cold and callous as it was when Poppy died, I really didn't like, even though it was probably justified and earned, I really didn't like when Eggsy just snapped Charlie's neck at the end.
I mean, I have mixed feelings about that sort of thing. Because, I mean, I think it might have been earned, but the problem with neck snapping is with stuff like that, often it's done when one person is in a position of power over another person. So when a villain does it, it's seen as cold and callous, but that's okay because they're the villain. When the hero does it, it's often like they're supposed to be the good guy, and yet they are deliberately taking advantage of a situation where someone has no power and dispatching them. I mean, this is why people didn't like Man of Steel a lot.
I couldn't help but think of that, exactly.
Yeah, because I didn't think of that when I saw the movie. But that's when it comes. I mean, that movie actually made more sense because he was going to laser a bunch of people to death. Though I'm pretty sure they could have gotten that out of that anyway. But still, so that scene in Man of Steel made more sense than this.
Yeah,
and
maybe
I'm not.
Yeah, controversy.
I mean, we don't know if they're going to get any sequels, but I mean, I don't think Charlie's coming back from that. I don't think there's any robotics or anything that's going to help him fix that. Although, again, headshots. Oh God, this is the Immortal Blood thing all over again. And so, I mean, I don't think it would have been a good idea to keep him alive, but there could have been other ways to get him out of the movie and to kill him. And I mean, I'm not saying it was entirely bad, but it does raise some very troubling feelings.
It does. It didn't put me in a good mood about Eggsy. And the one thing that the first movie did, any of the outlandish, crazy, violent stuff aside, I was always on Eggsy's. I was always rooting for Eggsy. I was always on the same page as him. I was with him in the development. And here in the whole movie, I was too. And in that one moment, I thought, I don't know. It raised that question for me that I had never had to think about with Eggsy before. Because I don't know, would Eggsy of the first movie have done something like that? I don't know. But then the question is, well, what in the second movie made him do it? And I get that a lot of the people we care about died indirectly because of Charlie. It just didn't click for me. And it was a very jarring thing to not have clicked for me.
Yeah, and the worst part is it's followed by the death of Poppy and then followed by Whiskey. Now, we've reached that point. We kept on saying we'd get to this.
Yes.
But I'm going to say a bunch of stuff, and you're going to say a bunch of stuff, and I'm pretty sure we're not going to have a good time.
Lovely.
So, it turns out after Whiskey is brought back basically to life from the headshot, Ginger shows him he does the same thing as Harry, where he's retreated back to his younger self. That's a thing that happens. So Ginger jolts him back with a picture of his high school sweetheart who died tragically, and there's a really nice moment when he sadly stares at the picture of his long lost love, and it's very sad. And I thought, oh, tragic backstory. He's still going to be a traitor, isn't he? And then it turns out he's okay with Poppy's plan because his girlfriend died due to a bunch of drug addicts or something or other. And so again, it's a very black and white view, but at the same time, it makes more sense than the president's viewpoint because we can see that he has suffered because of rampant drug abuse.
Yes.
Even though he himself and his girlfriend did not partake in that sort of stuff. So you can understand why he's okay with this. But then right before that, they throw this bullshit at us that actually he's okay with it because less drug users mean more people buying alcohol, so Statesman will make more money. Right. This is stupid for multiple reasons. Number one, he is not in charge of Statesman. It's not really his department, so why would he care? Second of all, we saw Statesman's stock prices earlier in the movie. They are making money by the fistful. They're doing great. They don't need to do any better. And three, and this is the biggest problem, it made me wonder whether or not Statesman as an organization was corrupt. Whether champagne and tequila and all those people were all bad and all working towards this thing from the very beginning. And that apparently isn't the case. So why even bring it up? The tragic backstory was fine on its own. You didn't need to mention... It's like one line, and it raises so many pointless and unnecessary questions. And even if that was okay, even if I didn't care about that stupid thing and I just focused on the sympathetic side of him. We're not given any real time to sympathize with him because it's like, oh yeah, my girlfriend died because of drug addict, so I'm okay with letting them die. Fight scene, boom, boom, boom. Oh, he's dead. Okay, so I thought we could have a bit of a discussion about this. Let it sit for a while. Maybe get to know this guy a bit more. Really have time to sympathize with him. But no, we don't have any time to sympathize with him because next scene, he's hamburger meat! So what did you think of it?
Well, I'll go one by one. There's a lot there.
Yeah.
I thought, yes, so like the scene in which Eggsy finally jogs Harry's memory, which we didn't mention before, but that Eggsy goes and buys a dog that's the same dog that Harry used to have as a Kingsman agent, and forces him to relive the trauma of choosing to shoot the dog. Great scene, really good emotional impact. There's that very brief scene that you mentioned about.
We
Halle
see
Berry
a young
killing.
Harry Hart as well. The CGI Colin Firth's face to make a young Colin Firth. That was kind of cool.
That was neat. I love seeing those things. In Ant-Man or in Captain America: Civil War, it's fun. It's cool.
Yeah.
But anyway, so he, that quick scene about Halle Berry showing Whiskey the photo, good. It set up that with that emotional reveal there. Then when Whiskey shows up again, I agree. I thought that the emotional reason why he's complicit to Poppy's plan, he was willing for it to happen, was great, was enough. The money stuff added on, about your points, I think to some extent it still works. To the first two things you said, I think it still works. A greedy person may always want more money, so even if the stock prices are doing great, fair enough. And just because he's not the head of Statesman doesn't mean he may not have a share in it. He may not have some way to get better. However, to your third point, to your lengthiest point, to your most passionate point, I completely agree with you. It didn't anger me when I watched it, but now thinking about it and after hearing you talk about it, I completely agree. It raised so many questions, so many possibilities that could have been cool. Maybe Statesman was corrupt. Is like you were saying before,
because here's the thing about these movies that I actually really like. All the bad guys are Americans. Except for Charlie to a certain extent. But here's the thing. With a lot of American stuff, it's usually British people that are the bad guys. We're sort of stereotyped. Because there's some... I think the reason I've heard for that is that there's some post-colonial attitude where Americans fear intelligence. Thank you. But it was refreshing for me as a British person to see an American be unequivocally the bad guy in two movies. And take that Uncharted, because I think in the first three video games of those, there's at least one British bad guy. So I mean, yeah, I kind of like that, but they could have used that, but they didn't.
Done something with it, and even if they hadn't done something with that, even if they weren't straight up corrupt, like you were saying before, there is that moral dubiousness, and that they're not a tailor company; they're a liquor company. In a movie that talks about drug use and sort of very briefly and vaguely weighs the pros and cons of that, there's something to be said about a liquor distributor too. There's some question there.
Because I mean, a lot of alcohol manufacturers are like, they're all in all the adverts, at least over here. It always is the tagline, drink responsibly, please be responsible, enjoy responsibly, absolutely. And so, but at the same time, like, there are people that don't use it responsibly. We could maybe mention that, but no.
Yeah, and it's to throw that in at the last minute and do absolutely nothing with it, and then just have another good solid Matthew Vaughn-esque fight, and then end it so quickly, and then not even talk about it after he was dead. It's such a waste. Such a sad, unfortunate to throw in. Like, it did not need to be there. The emotional reason behind what he did was more than enough to justify it. Had they fleshed out the financial stuff, maybe. But even still, it was a lot. It was great to see it from a personal perspective. See why someone would agree with the Poppy's plan from a personal perspective. The same way it could have been interesting to see the president deal with it from a political perspective, and then you had Poppy dealing with it from a business perspective. It was well rounded. There were a lot of things going on there. He didn't need the extra money stuff.
Yeah, and they killed him in the exact same way they killed Keith Allen. Who, I mean, if anyone from America who's listening doesn't know, Keith Allen is a fairly well-known actor over here. He was the Sheriff of Nottingham in the BBC, slightly recent BBC TV series Robin Hood. He was very good in that. He's also the father of Lily Allen, well-known pop singer over here, and Alfie Allen, who plays Theon Greyjoy in Game of Thrones. So that's another Game of Thrones connection, actually, thinking about it. But they killed him in the exact same way. And it's like, well, I saw someone get turned to mincemeat earlier.
Exactly. The meat grinder was, maybe some people thought it was a bit too far, but it was, appropriately and horrifically gruesome when they first did it. Yeah. In the first Kingsman, if they had shot two people in the head like Harry Hart, if they had ended it with two jokes about Eggsy getting it on with Princess Tildy, if they had done those sort of shock moments twice, they wouldn't be as good. And here we've already seen a movie full of those shock moments, but they still went ahead with the meat grinder thing twice.
Yeah. They don't even show his clothes in amongst the churned up meat. I don't get how they do that. Is that meat grinder able to separate fabric and meat? I don't get it. But so then we fast track to the end. They get the antidote all over the world.
Drones, through Amazon drones.
Amazon drones. The president is impeached, quite rightly. And,
and the chief of staff is the one in charge now?
I guess.
Not how it works, but all right.
I don't know enough about American politics to question it, so I'll allow it. And there's no bad blood between Statesman and Kingsman. Like, hey, you killed one of our guys. Well, he was a bad guy all along. How come you didn't know? I think there ought to be some sort of, like, not necessarily them having a falling out, but there ought to be a conversation at some point. And it ends in this really happy-dappy moment where, okay, ginger ale. Hey, Halle Berry, do you want to be a field agent, even though you've got no training for this whatsoever? Yes, please. Okay, you can be a field agent. Awesome.
And that would be nice had we not seen the other tech guy die very quickly.
You think maybe she'd say, well, he was in the field for like 5 minutes and got blown up, so maybe I'll stay behind.
Or maybe she could say, for Merlin, just throw in those two words and it might have been a little better.
Yeah, actually, yes. Or perhaps they could have reversed it and had Merlin say, actually, you know what, sometimes I'd like to get on the field. She's like, really? Oh. And then when he does, and she's like doing it, he becomes an inspiration for her or something. Yeah. I don't know. And there's this weird thing, because like, apparently she applied to be a field agent many times before, but Whiskey always voted her out. Did Whiskey have a problem with her or something?
Yeah. Is that because he was complicit with Poppy's plan, or was he just a dick?
I think it might have been just a dick. I don't know. They never give a reason. So, and then Eggsy marries Princess Tildy and becomes a Prince of Sweden. Yeah. But he will never... he's a very public figure now. He cannot be a spy anymore.
Yeah. To his point, like, he says later, like, we'll talk about this, and I figured they would talk about it. The smart, what I thought, Kingsman mature way to deal with it was to have the conversation, because it's not a matter of, that would make his life as a spy harder. It would end his life as a spy. I really can't see his life as a spy going on when he's the Prince of Sweden.
Because when you have spies, there's a such thing like being not disavowable. Disavowable is
Mhm.
what if a spy gets caught or captured or is seen doing something, he's disavow. You can disavow them because like, oh, he's not involved with us. He's just some random guy. We don't know who he is. Like
Yeah.
this guy is the Prince of Sweden, and we saw him shooting terrorists in the head. Um. Oh, he has a pug. Look at the pug. Get distracted by the pug. And
The spy was the pug.
yeah, the spy was the spy pug. Oh god, and so yeah. I mean, again, it's like it's raising questions but not bothering to answer them, and I hate that. If you just don't raise the questions in the first place, and
Yeah.
then it ends on a weird note where Channing Tatum, aka Tequila, is now in a suit and bowler hat and walking down Savile Row towards the new reconstructed Kingsman. And apparently, apparently that means he's going to work for them now. I got really confused at the time. I was like, what does that mean? And I thought that was not the worst way to end it, but kind of pointless. And here's how I would have ended it.
Yes.
I would have ended it with them. They're rebuilding Kingsman. That's the whole point, because Statesman buys like a whiskey Scotch distillery in Scotland to help get them back on their feet, which is a very nice thing for them to do. They could have shown them like a montage or something of them trying to rebuild Kingsman. And maybe Eggsy sees a guy not too dissimilar from himself who he's going to train to be part of Kingsman. Maybe this guy walking down the street towards Kingsman could be like some young guy in modern day clothes, not in a suit or in a bowler hat and stuff, and he's just got a card that's saying Kingsman Tailor Shop. And on the back it says Oxford's not bros or something.
Yeah.
And he walks into it curious, and it's like setting up like, oh, they're rebuilding Kingsman. We're getting things back on track. And instead it's just Channing Tatum in a bowler hat, which admittedly I always kind of wanted to see, but...
Yeah. I would have liked adding on to that. I think that's a much better ending, and I think I can only imagine that's the direction they're going for with later movies, but they didn't really set it up here. For a movie that likes to set things up and never explain them, or maybe explain them later, they somehow didn't set that up. But it would have been nice to see, as they were building the new Kingsman, just Eggsy in a nice solemn moment with Harry standing behind him, hanging up a picture of Roxy, a picture of Merlin, a picture of maybe JB the pug. Just one final little, hats off to these characters that are no longer with us, which would then, firmly put the movie's foot into new territory and move it forward with another series or another, more in the series of Kingsman movies, recruiting new people. I don't mind that Channing Tatum, would be in the next ones or is the next recruit. He wasn't in this one. I read somewhere it might have been scheduling reasons, like they wanted him to be in it more than he wound up being. So I'm happy to see him more in future movies.
Well, on the subject of future movies, Vaughan has stated that there is a third Kingsman movie planned with Jane Goldman, who wrote the film with him.
Yes.
And apparently he wants Dwayne Johnson to be the villain of Kingsman 3.
Okay.
Okay. Sure. I wouldn't... Here's the thing. If he's already written a character with Dwayne Johnson in mind, that's fine. Don't automatically think, I want Dwayne Johnson, because, he might not be right for the role. I like Dwayne Johnson. I think he actually can act and is very good in lots of different movies, but don't build a movie around him.
I agree. It'd be fun to see him as a villain. I don't know if he's done that. If he has, I certainly can't remember it.
I think it was a villain in, I think there was a movie version of Doom, like the video game Doom, and he ended up being a bad guy in that.
Sure.
I don't know. I haven't seen it, so I don't know.
No, me neither. That'd be nice. Like he's.
I know he wants to be Black Adam, like the Shazam Marvel Captain Marvel.
That's true. That's true.
But I've no idea.
He would fit into this franchise the same way he would fit into most franchises, well enough.
Well enough. About as well as a video game in Jumanji.
Yeah.
And apparently Vaughan has also stated that he is interested in making a Statesman spin-off. I mean, that might be cool to see. I don't really see the point of it. They feel like a small part of a different story. Otherwise, again, it feels like they're just another version of Kingsman, and it feels like they're just making a Statesman, a American version of Kingsman, just for American audiences, and that's kind of I want to say patronizing. I think a lot of British movies feel the need to include American characters because I think a lot of people working on those things feel that if there aren't Americans in the movie, Americans won't see it. This is why one of my former, now favorite movies of all time, Love Actually, had like an American in every other scene. And it's just like, I mean, I'm British, so I don't know. I'm sure you have thoughts about it. It feels kind of like you don't need to see Americans in every movie you see, right?
No, maybe that might even be why Samuel L. Jackson was in the first Kingsman. I think you're absolutely. There's a good point to that. I don't think we do. I don't think we need our own Kingsman. Even though the movies are very firmly British, they spend a good chunk of time all over the world. And if the Golden Circle was trying to get me as an American or anyone as a movie viewer to want to see a Statesman spinoff, it didn't work. I don't know if that was the main point of the movie. I assume not.
I hope not. I hope not. Otherwise, that would cheapen this movie even more. And so, we've brought up a lot of bad stuff about the movie. Currently it has 51% on Rotten Tomatoes. This movie is polarizing. That's pretty much split down the middle. Because Rotten Tomatoes, apparently, it has an accuracy rating of about like 1%. So, half of people like this, half of people don't. And honestly, talking about this movie, a lot of the bad stuff really has become much more obvious to me. When I was watching the movie, I was like, oh, I didn't really like that bit. Oh, but for the most part, I was having a good time. Having talked about it for a while now, actually, I'm having the same thing that I did when I saw Alien Covenant. I had a good time watching it, but now that I talk about it, so I don't really know what to think about it now.
Yeah, I didn't enjoy it when I watched it. I left the theater. I've left movies disappointed before. I've seen bad movies in theaters plenty of times. But I don't think, and part of this is my fault and not the movie's fault. But I've never gone into a movie with such high expectations and left, with such low feelings about it later, such disappointment. I've never had that big of a gap before.
I have, and that movie was called Jumper. Fucking Hayden Christensen!
Yeah.
Oh, God. I could do a whole podcast episode on that movie alone, but so I didn't leave the movie disappointed, but it's one of those things that after a while, the more I thought about it, I had the same thing with Jack Reacher, the first Jack Reacher movie. I saw the Jack Reacher, I thought, hey, that was pretty good. And then by the time it took me to walk from the cinema to my flat, I realized, oh, wait, that was shit.
Yeah.
A 30-minute walk is all it took for me to realize that movie was crap. And this movie is not as bad as that. I think there's a lot of good stuff there. I think it felt like a Kingsman movie. It didn't feel like anything different for me. It had all the cool action scenes. It had a couple of cool characters and a few new characters that weren't utilized very well, but still. And Colin Firth is back kicking ass, which I always will enjoy. I will forever enjoy. I love him. I love him no matter what he's in. Taron Egerton is good. Although this movie really annoyed me because he's the main character. Would you agree?
Absolutely.
He did not receive top billing though. He came after Colin Firth and Julianne Moore in the credits.
Yeah.
I don't care. Here's the thing. I don't care who's in a movie. I have favorite actors. I like actors that I like and actors that I don't like. But I don't care how great Colin Firth is, how great Julianne Moore is. He's the main character. He gets top billing. He's if you're doing it like in order of appearance thing, fine. But if you've got a main character, they come first. Then have Colin Firth and Julianne Moore. Just because he's kind of a new actor, although he's been in quite a few bankable movies recently. I mean, what does a guy have to do to get top billing? Jeez.
Yeah. Maybe more importantly than that, I thought in the first movie, not only was he the main character, but his arc in the movie was my favorite thing about the movie. It was the most engaging. I loved it. I was
Manners maketh man.
Yeah, it was a great story. You could strip away all the spy stuff, all the violence, all the stylized action. It wouldn't be as fun, but you'd still have this really great, meaningful story about a guy realizing that being a gentleman doesn't mean you have money or you dress nice. Being a gentleman is about a way you carry yourself, and that's a great story. For him here,
Absolutely.
yeah, what was his arc here? Was his arc, I don't want to marry because it would make things complicated, and then what the hell, I'll marry anyway? Was that the arc? I don't know what else, what
Learning
development.
to trust Harry after he might not be on top form anymore, but that was like a couple of scenes at most.
Yeah, and
I
those are both really, they start really late in the movie too, like the middle and the second half. So I don't know. It wasn't that was done,
rebuilding Kingsman, getting revenge for Kingsman, I guess. But then
I
that's
guess.
that's basically Merlin's arc too, as well.
Yeah. And I guess they do it.
Yeah.
They get revenge. Uh,
Then they go home, everything's tickety boo.
yeah, but it wasn't nearly as fulfilling. It wasn't nearly as, I imagine if I went to my mom and said, "Let's watch Kingsman," she'd have a lot of problems with it. She wouldn't like the violence. She wouldn't like, a lot of the things that are very Matthew Vaughn-esque. But I guarantee that she would connect with the emotional arc. I guarantee most people, maybe everyone, would connect with that emotional arc at the very least.
I mean,
And the
his
rest,
mum, who was a big emotional centerpiece in the first movie, she's in one scene at the end. She gets no
yeah,
lines. She's just there, as in the wedding scene, just
yeah,
like clapping, like, "Oh, my son's getting married." We've had no scenes this entire movie. She's just
done.
there, and
And listen, I love Elton John.
oh yeah,
But when Elton, I have to say that every time. But when Elton John is in the movie more than the mother of the main character, who was a central part of the first movie, who would have been, in a world where everything of his is gone and crumbling, and he doesn't know what to do, and she could be that perfect emotional rock. Why is Elton John in it more than her?
yeah.
Maybe not
She,
mad
I
that he
mean, his house got blown up. Shouldn't she
yeah,
think that he was dead? Or like, oh my god, I was so worried. And it took me a second when I saw her in the movie to realize, hang on a minute, that's Eggsy's mum.
yeah,
Like, we see
exactly.
her like two shots, and it was only on the second shot that I realized, oh, because it focused on the shot. I'm like, who's that lady? Have we seen her
Hmm.
before? Oh, it's Eggsy's mum, right?
Yeah,
So, jeez, I
and
mean, come
didn't
on,
he
for
have this
fucking for the guy, one of his friends who gets infected and starts dancing after he does crystal meth, played by Thomas Turgoose.
yeah,
He gets more scenes than her.
yeah,
Jeez,
absolutely.
the
Well,
kid from This Is England gets more scene than the main character's mum.
didn't he have a baby brother too? Where's the baby brother?
Oh yeah, I
Yeah,
completely forgot about that. I guess
right?
he wasn't invited to the wedding.
I guess not. Uh, yeah, him rescuing his mom. Maybe rescuing is not a great word, but him getting his mom away from the abusive, I don't know, stepdad or new boyfriend or whatever the situation
Yeah.
was. That relationship, that dynamic, was a big part of the first half of that movie, in the middle too. It was a good part of the first movie, and none of that was here. It can be resolved. I think it was resolved, but you still have to wonder, like, how's she doing now? Did it work? Is she doing all right? Do they have a good relationship, mother son?
What's her relationship
What
with Tildy like? How did she like
yeah,
her? We see Tildy get on with his friends fine. Like, that
hmm
would have been really interesting. Like, oh, my son's dating a princess. What the hell?
yeah. She got on
And
with this one's very fine for
yeah,
an older royal, family member.
yeah. And I like how he's still getting married to her, even though he said, fucking put it down to her dad.
Yeah.
That scene where there's been a misunderstanding. And I mean, okay, so I feel like I'm on the verge of being a hypocrite here because I have
Mhm.
lambasted movies
Yeah.
that I hate, done by DC mainly and Disney, that do far less bad things, if I make far less mistakes than this movie.
Right.
So is it a question of like the good stuff in this is worth all the bad stuff? Is it really just split down the middle? Lots of really good stuff, lots of really bad stuff, so they're just kind of fighting it out? I don't
Mhm.
know.
I spent the whole movie coming out because, see, I feel, I would give this movie a 49% for Rotten Tomato score, because for me, the entire way through, there would always be one good thing, one bad thing. They were very balanced, and then by the end, there was just one too many bad things for me. I've seen so many worse movies. I've seen so many movies that I couldn't make it through, that I never would have started, that just really bored me. And At some parts of this, I was not as engaged as I would have liked to have been, but I was never bored. I was maybe confused or wondering something I probably shouldn't have been wondering, but I wasn't. I was thinking about it. I wasn't completely zoned out from it. So for me, there was just one too many bad things for it to have been a good movie, or for me to have enjoyed seeing most of it.
All right, so good stuff. Taron Egerton, Colin Firth, Julianne Moore's performance, Merlin and his scenes, Elton John and his scenes, all of the fight scenes except for maybe the first one in the cab, and a couple of jokes.
The relationship with Princess Tilly I thought was very fun.
Princess Tilly, yeah, and I guess the brief glimmer of sympathy we had for Whiskey, and the inventiveness of the villain's plan, and that's basically it. So I guess the takeaway is, it goes back to what I said at the beginning, like, it's good, but there's not quite there. So there is lots of good stuff there. I am not sorry that I saw this movie.
No, me neither.
There is a lot of bad stuff, and I do wish it wasn't in this movie. So it's one of those movies where if you don't see it, you know what, I'm not going to say, yeah, you should absolutely see it. But it's one of the movies that if you were interested to see it, I wouldn't tell you not to.
Yeah, if you like the first movie, I don't think anyone's going to like this one better than the first one.
Oh, absolutely not. I don't.
Yeah, but if you like the first movie, even if you're like me and you wind up not liking the second one, it's still worth seeing. There's enough Kingsman stuff in there to make it good. And it does set up this third movie and maybe some spin-offs, whatever Matthew Vaughn decides to do. It sets them off in a bland enough way that whatever, there's room for good stuff to happen. They can take it in basically whatever direction they want.
Yeah, I just hope that this movie doesn't come to be seen as another one of those bland, boring spy action thriller things, because that's what the whole movie, the whole first movie, was trying to not be. I mean, they pretty much stated it to Samuel L. Jackson, like, this ain't that kind of movie, bruv. And what if this movie is in fact that kind of movie?
Yeah, I think the first movie had the advantage of being a parody first and a movie second.
Or at very least a satire.
Yeah, satire, yes. And that's not to besmirch the story in its own right or the characters that are in their own right. That was fantastic. But that parody punch that talks about, I always like the old James Bond movies, all of that stuff, it made the movie more fun, more tongue-in-cheek. Maybe it didn't take itself as seriously. This is just as a sequel, totally independent of whatever the movie is, didn't have that advantage. And that didn't work. Not having it did not work to its advantage. So it sort of maybe got a little full of itself. It got a little too complicated. It might have forgotten a little bit about that satire aspect of the first movie. But you're right. I don't know if I'd call it boring, but it's certainly leaning towards that more than the first movie was. I share your worry.
Yeah, but so I think on that rather depressing note, we're going to end the show. Thank you very much, Jonathan, for joining me today.
Thank you so much for having me. This is wonderful.
I'm so glad you had a good time. Now, if you had a good time, dear Capers, please tell your friends, shout it from the rooftops. We want to get the word out. And if you haven't already, go back and listen to some of our other super episodes, like, for example, our Alien Covenant review episode. So you can also listen to the show on iTunes, Podbean, YouTube, or, of course, at a place to hang your cape. We have a Patreon. Check out the rewards. That's patreon.com/AP2HYC. If you want to get in touch with us, suggest show topics, or maybe you want to come on the show yourself, like Jonathan, you can find us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, at AP2HYC. Thank you very much to Dan Harris for our logo, the lovely little microphone with the red and blue glasses, those are mine. And thank you very much, Capers, for listening. This has been PodCapers, the official podcast of A Place to Hang Your Cape. Cue the music! I don't think I'm going to get this movie on DVD. I got the first one on DVD. I don't think I'm going to get this one.
No, I didn't get the first one, but I don't know if I'd see. Well, I watched it because I went with a couple of friends, and half of us had seen the first one, half of us hadn't, and we all watched the first one the week before, which definitely made the second one feel worse.
Oh yeah, it's fresh in your mind.
Yeah, yeah.
One thing I should have said with this movie is that I did like during the credits with dope thanks to Samuel L. Jackson.
That was really funny. Yeah, I didn't catch that. A friend of mine said, "Hey, did you catch what was in the credits?" No, what they said. He goes, "Dope facts." It's great. Yeah,
Which is how you thank Samuel L. Jackson. It's pretty much
absolutely.
the only way.